Welcome to Dead Genre Chronicles, a critical podcast on the diversity of JRPGs. Drawing from the origin of the genre to the present day, every month we play through a JRPG and we invite you to play along and send us your questions and thoughts on it. I'm Devin, the chemist who broke the game.
I'm Becky. I threw money at the world's problems until they went away because socialism works.
I'm Leroy, the Geomaster.
This episode we'll be discussing Final Fantasy V, the second major job system-based Final Fantasy game, and the focus of the Four-Job Fiesta, a charity event and challenge run that happens annually in support of Child's Play. The premise of the challenge run is this: you are assigned 4 jobs under a variety of restrictions and must complete the game without using other jobs. We can just go over our, assignments first. I got assigned... I played normal. We all played normal because... we didn't want to hurt ourselves.
Normal was quite enough, given that, I'd never played the game before.
Yeah, but also, Chaos could have given you, a bunch of broken combos, too, because... Okay, anyway, we all played normal, which means we got 1 job from each elemental crystal. So, I got White Mage, Red Mage, Bard, and Chemist, which made my early game terrible, and then I broke the game. How about you, Becky?
I got Monk, I'm going to forget one. Monk, Time Mage, Ranger, and Samurai, which was actually really versatile, except for Neo X Death, which was a bit of a wall.
And it's the last wall, so...
Leroy?
I got Thief, Summoner, Geomancer, and Dragoon, and my set sucked. It wasn't good at anything.
Yeah, Geomancer is the one class that doesn't actually break the game in certain ways, which is unfortunate because, all the benefits that Geomancer gives you as a party in a normal game where you have access to all the jobs, you just always have, and you don't really need most of the time because it's you don't take damage from trap floors, and you can see trap floors.
Yeah, you'll switch to Geomancer, just once in 3 dungeons ever.
Yeah.
Normally. It's also just because it's a very weak, terrible job.
Yeah. Basically, it's very, very niche uses, even for niche uses in this game. This game was also shorter than I expected.
Yeah, a lot shorter. Didn't we look it up and it's on How Long to Beat at about 50 hours?
Was it? I think it was 40 tops, but that also is accounting for people grinding out 22 jobs, or 26 if you're playing the advanced version.
Well, so I finished my file at 21 hours, I think, but...
Wow.
It clocks decently if, when I first played the game, I got 30-something, because in that file I talked to all the NPCs, and then I decided what... I'm going to have all my characters be freelancer and what 2 jobs are they going to have or what abilities they're going to have. I think I even had one of my casters a mime for more abilities. But, that part of the game, especially, the last dungeon just gives you a lot of job points. It's, encouraging you to, finish off your set and fight Shinru or whatever. But, yeah, the 4 job goes a lot faster.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed that it was 21 hours, because I'm pretty sure my file was 30. I did a lot of grinding.
I didn't do any grinding. I finished the game at the level I got by doing all the dungeons, which was 39, 41, depending on the character.
Yeah, the How Long to Beat is 31.5 for main story, 36 for main plus extras.
Okay.
Which, the main plus extras probably just includes, doing Fork Tower and Deep Sea Trench and stuff.
Yeah.
The Completionist, which I imagine is maxing all your fucking jobs, is 67.5 hours. So, and that also doesn't have as many data points. So, I think it's an interesting challenge for a game that I probably wouldn't have ever finished if I played it normally, just because the sort of knowledge it ends up fostering if you play through it with all the jobs unlocked is you just have kind of answers to everything if you know how the jobs work. Which is a big if for some people, because it's that really awkward spot, that blind spot for knowledge between Final Fantasy IV and VI, which we got, and it's part of the job line job system line that we didn't really get until the anthology editions, and that people didn't really play a lot of until Final Fantasy Tactics. But that's an entirely fucked up and distorted job system compared to this.
Well, even Tactics is fairly niche.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just going to say, if it's the first time playing a game like this, it's really convoluted and complicated, and you'll probably just pick whatever looks cool.
Yeah, like, I have to say, having just the wonderful trove of Fiesta-specific resources, I don't think I'd have got through the game without that either, to be honest. Like, I wouldn't really have understood what the jobs I got were for, even.
It's also really hard. It's a hard game. It's a hard Final Fantasy game, which is usually not that hard.
You think so? I mean, I suppose I got good jobs, so I don't really have a perspective on it.
I mean, I've played the game normally, and I can't think of another Final Fantasy game where the bosses will reduce your HP to 1 digit and then attack twice after that. It's just like, there's stuff the bosses do in this game.
I think it's kind of like the sort of deal that later became kind of the norm for Bravely Default and Bravely Second, where they expect you to be using a lot of different shit and being kind of busted. So the bosses just kind of deal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's just like the curve of Final Fantasy V is like the kind of boss I'm describing happens as soon as like Iron Claw. It's like hour 8 of the main game, you're having bosses that can instantly kill your party, and that's just not the norm for Final Fantasy, is all I'm meaning.
That's also because, like, they're using things that you also get access to, because Blue Magic is fucked up. Like, the boss you mentioned, you can actually learn that from him in that fight, and it makes a lot of fights just ridiculously easy. You can also learn level 5 death, and then level half moves, and then do the death by math strat for everything, and it's awful. It's just not fun to play or watch. I literally I'm doing math to win. You're kind of supposed to not get that close to the numbers in a game, usually.
A lot of Blue Magic's locked off, though, unless you know exactly what monsters to control with the Beastmaster. Like, it's not stuff you could just figure out. It's stuff that you need a guide for.
Yeah, unless they use it on themselves and you realize, oh, hey, I could, like, confuse them and get it to use it on me. So, but, like, we have some questions that I think it would serve as good foundations for discussing a lot of this stuff, since this is a very weird episode. This is not going to be one of our traditional, like, we're going to go through the plot. Because the only, like, major plot thing is, like, Exdeath is the most generic villain, and it's fine.
Apart from being a tree.
No, he's, like...
He's actually a sentient tree.
Yeah, that's weird, but also that's a Shinto
one distinguishing feature.
Yeah, it is a Shinto thing.
That's a Shinto thing. It's not just random thing. That's very Japanese, and it sounds weird to us, but that's just, like... It's kind of a generic evil backstory for Japanese yokai and shit. But okay.
There are things I could say about Exdeath, but maybe I shouldn't.
We can get to those. From Gay Anime Girl on Twitter, for Leroy, what was using Geomancer like?
Oh my god. So I exclusively used Geomancer for as long as I could. At some point I made Boots my Bart's my Geomancer, and he's just a Geomancer. All he did was Gaia. And most turns the Geomancer would do nothing. So using Geomancer was like having 3 people in your party, and that's what it's like.
Oof.
There were certain times in caves where I got access to, I forget what it's called. It's like Stalactite or something, and that is like 100 power magic attack that ignores magic defense. That's good. That's the only time Geomancer's good.
Yeah.
There's like 2 or 3 bosses in the game Geomancer's good on, and then it's blatantly useless. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so a thing to know about Geomancer is that Gaia works like there's 3 tiers of magic that can happen in each environment based on your level.
I think there's actually 4.
But like one's always going to be available to you, then 3 higher ones.
I never got enough level for the 4th tier because it's 51 and you don't even get the high level in the game.
Yeah. The problem is in the mobile and Steam release, they removed that, so it's just the highest one, I think? Maybe? Or random? It's busted, though, compared to, like, Geomancers are actually useful in iOS and Steam. And something like that is... This game is so fucking buggy. Okay, so knives are supposed to use agility and attack to calculate their, like, attack power? Or agility and strength. They don't, except for the chicken knife, which was already overpowered. Like Beastmasters, none of us got a Beastmaster, but their calm ability, which puts a temporary stop on an enemy, was supposed to just work on magic beast enemies, but instead it works on all enemies but magic beasts. This game
that sounds like classic Final Fantasy programming.
It is so fucked up. Like, if this game was actually programmed correctly, it probably would have been like you probably couldn't do Four-Job Fiesta, but also it would be a lot more interesting to, like, toy around with classes in. Because, like, okay, Beastmaster only works on beasts. That makes sense, but also, now you can't calm chain Omega to death. Because the part of the run that started the Fiesta off, they got enough, or they hit the threshold for the Omega incentive, and they had Beastmaster in their job set, so they just calm chained him and hit him while he was stopped to death. Which is more or less how I ended up beating him, but I had bards do it with Stop song. So, yeah, this game is not programmed well, but I think that's part of its charm.
I mean, like, not programmed well is relative, but it functions, right? We're talking about glitches and edge cases that just happen to be really easy to access.
You can't see the seams unless you look it up on the wiki. Then you're like, oh wow.
Yeah, like playing this game now with like the whole internet available to us on the same machine. You know, I was playing on one monitor. I had 4 guides open on the other monitor. Is a very different experience to what it must have been like playing this in 1995.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's definitely different, but we're never really going to be able to capture the transience of the moment of release unless we're there for it anymore.
Can't even be there for it. Didn't come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, 1998 or 99 when they did their anthology release then, because that's the first time it got, 98 we also got it in English via fan translation, which is one of the most, like, well-known fan translations.
Oh.
I'm not talking about quality. It's just like fucking Kotaku wrote a story about the high schooler who worked on it. It's well known.
Oh man!
I played the French translation. That's the version I played first, and it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, this game has a weird history in English-speaking countries.
I think I prefer the fan translation though, sorry, okay. I was just thinking about it.
From Sarnai, how was playing Final Fantasy V with a variety of jobs and being able to use abilities, spells, items, and targeting specific enemies?
Sarnai, it is your own damn fault for doing Berserker Risk and then literally cheering on your own Berserker picks.
Yeah, you literally asked for it and celebrated when it happened.
And, to his credit, finished the run.
Yeah. Although it did take him leveling up to level 99. Sarnai is a friend of ours. He's in the Discord server and talks on streams, in stream chats a lot. He decided to go Chaos with Berserker Risk, and that means any job slot could have a Berserker, and a Berserker was added to the pool of players with Berserker Risk for every $10 raised before the event started. He got four Berserkers and finished the game with Quadzerkers, so you can do it. I believe in you if you want to beat this game. the RNG can beat this game, you can do it too. Yeah, we're front-loading questions, but I feel like a lot of these are good. From Duckling Smith on Twitter, what other JRPG would you play in this ridiculous format?
We were talking the other day about whether you could do an FF12 job challenge. It would have to be a different structure because in FF12, this would be with the International Zodiac Job System version or the new Zodiac Age version. There are only 12 jobs and there are 6 characters.
And you are locked into them anyway.
Yeah, there's much less combination or recombination. I think there are ways you could do it. It might be interesting. I don't think you could do it with FF3, for example.
No, there are solutions that the game gives you, and then questions that demand that solution alone.
FF3 doesn't work like the other.
Yeah, it's
the most efficient way to play it is to pick the job you want to do and then stick with it, because the jobs level up to 99 and you get better growths the longer you stay in a job.
Yeah,
it's punishing and different and not as,
FF3 is just a mean game. That's kind of why I was surprised to hear you say you thought FF5 was hard, because my point of comparison is the FF3 DS remake, which is a fucking nightmare.
Final Fantasy 3 is harder, but also Final Fantasy 3 is like, and you know, I guess not everyone plays Final Fantasy 5 on active either, but Final Fantasy 3 is really
God.
Not everybody does play it on active.
Final Fantasy 3 is really lock and key, and you just need to like know what set of jobs you're supposed to bring into this fight. Until the end, then it's just fucking luck. Wow, but Final Fantasy V is all reflexes, and oh wait, that's just me. I'm the only one who's thinking that.
Yeah, because this is gonna be the next fucking Dead Genre Chronicles meme. Is Leroy playing on active and pausing when he has to think? Like, just play on wait.
Not only that,
I can't wait for you to play FF12 on active.
I actually am playing 12 on active. I've just been playing on active the whole time.
You might as well fucking speedrun the game then if you're gonna do that.
I like the pressure in my gut when I have to use a potion and they're hitting me. I don't know, I'm weird.
What was the meme you were gonna give in answer to the question? I had a serious answer.
I mean, it's serious, but everyone's gonna think I'm not serious. But it would be Dark Souls, and you'd roll for a main weapon and a sub weapon, and you'd just be stuck using those. But like, I would limit it to weapons you could actually feasibly use in a new game. You'd stick with your starting weapon until you have the stats for a new weapon, and then you're just forced to use that weapon. And it would change a lot of fights. You'd be forced using a playstyle or a weapon style you're probably not good with, and you'd have new experiences on the boss fights. I think it'd be pretty fun. It'd be the only way I would ever
I actually think that's a good suggestion. Although actually, the thing I really want to see with Dark Souls is the Super Ghouls and Ghosts All Weapons Challenge, where you have to use whatever you pick up.
There is there is literally a streamer, Lobos Jr., who does use what you see runs with the mod that randomizes where items are in the world.
Oh man.
He has had runs die because he literally couldn't move to escape an area that he climbed down to without getting hit by enemies. People have done that. It's not great. Like, sometimes it works out, but no.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a run I would want to do, but I can see the merit in it.
Yeah. As for, like, JRPGs, like, with job systems, people have suggested on, like, Four-Job Fiesta platforms, either Reddit or Stream or whatever, that people do a Bravely Default Four-Job Fiesta.
Of
that
course.
would be awful. Do not. That game is built around you breaking it with all 20-something jobs. It does not play well. Ugh.
I like how you just leave that sentence there rather than... I mean, we think of job systems as a really quintessential JRPG thing, but actually...
I don't.
Like, actual job systems, in the sense that allow this kind of challenge, are pretty rare.
Fuck, I would play a Disgaea with this restriction.
Disgaea, you've got to use a particular subset of the classes. That could be good.
Yeah.
I mean, Disgaea is yielding, though, so...
Yeah.
Class systems are more of a Western RPG thing, honestly.
That's true, actually.
They pop up in the niche games. They're in Final Fantasy, so it seems like they're like inflated in importance, but they're not that common. Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
What was y'all's hardest bosses in your playthroughs?
Gorilla!
Gorilla's hard no matter when you play. Gorilla's hard when you just start a new game and try to fight him. Gorilla just fucks you up.
Gorilla with white mages, though.
Gorilla with thieves was...
I had no fucking damage output.
I used all my potions.
Yeah, Gorilla. I mean, I could have done Gorilla fine if I'd remembered to equip Chakra on my monks, but I forgot, so I was reliant on potions and I did nearly run out. Neo Exdeath was like, I had to stop and grind 15 levels to beat.
You know what? The only time I had to stop and grind on a boss was freaking Archeo Avis. That
fight is a bastard.
With my stupid set.
I think apart from Neo Exdeath, I really had to think about Twintania. Is it Twintania who does the Giga Flare?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, because I was relying on the Samurai Ianuki ability to exploit its vulnerability to death while it's charging, but the charging phase is so short, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had to survive long enough to get into the charging phase. So yeah, that required...
Yeah, I saw people struggling with Twintania on just Googling it on the internet, but I put on reflect rings and it would reflect its Giga Flare back at it.
Yeah, I didn't have any reflect rings. I think a lot of the final section, if you actually prepare properly and you have the reflect rings, it's much less of a problem, but I didn't have them.
Leroy could recoup like reflect rings later, but if you don't have a thief, you can basically only get them from killing reflect knights in Barrier Tower, which blows up. So I ground 2 of those out on stream just so I could have 2 for X-Death.
You get 1 in a chest too. I don't remember where.
I didn't.
I missed that one.
Yeah.
I went through all the dungeons, even the deep sea trench and stuff. So I think it's actually. I think it's in History Falls, the wall ring, but I'm still not sure.
Yeah, I did up to deep sea trench because I needed Meteor for my time mage, but I didn't do History Falls. So.
History Falls is like actually one of my favorite dungeons in the game.
It's also rather pointless mechanically because you have air boosted Sildra. It looks
great though.
I mean, I'm not one to judge. You did beat the game with 3 useful jobs and a Geomancer. I cannot overstate how much the Chemist will break the game if you give it so much as like 2 turns. Because they can just haste themselves, double their health, which is fucked up, with a free, like, it costs 110 gil to buy this item that doubles your health if you drink it. Only Chemists can use it, but also you can mix that together for other people with, like, fucking Phoenix Down and Dragon Fang or something like that. I forget what, but, like, it's busted. You can just say, no, I have double the health now. Like, there's a status that does that in Final Fantasy XII Bubble, right?
Yep.
And
yep.
That's
You'll
key.
be using Bubble at some point.
Yeah, that's key to a lot of, like, super boss shit, so you don't get murdered. But this was just keeping me alive because I could go to having enough HP to survive, like, whatever they wanted to throw at me while I was dual casting shitty, like, level 2 spells at people, or later dual casting holies. Dual cast is also fucked up, but it takes so long to grind for.
Dual cast and dual wield rapid fire and mix and Final Fantasy V is fun.
It's certainly it's got a lot of ways that things become ridiculous later on. I feel like if you did have many jobs, you have a lot of options for your preferred way of breaking the game.
I waited till in my first playthrough I waited till the Cleft of Dimensions, the Void, until like spoiling myself looking what the jobs did, and it was kind of, I was like, what? When I found out the Ranger had rapid fire, I was like, what is that? Why is that in the game?
Yeah.
And I wasn't gonna use Chemist because I was like, items, those are dumb. That's not gonna be good. And then I read about what they can do, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, like, you assumed it was Final Fantasy Tactics Chemist, because that's all Chemist is in that game, and it's shit. Compared to this, where it's like, oh, I mixed, like, a Dragon Fang and a potion, and I'm 20 levels higher now. Which is fucked up.
Yeah, like, when you got Chemist, I was so salty. I was like, God damn it.
I'm happy none of us got Blue Mage, because, well, Leroy could have used it in the end, but, like, if I got Blue Mage, I would have busted the fucking game open and just not had any fun. But at least with Chemist, I had to learn a bunch of bullshit strats like, oh, I'm gonna Berserk and Blind Omniscient. That's cool.
I got Hermes Sandals. It wasn't so bad. I wasn't, like, in a deficit of potions every battle.
Yeah.
But it took until then.
Haste is really important, and Becky got it, like, because she had Time Mage, and then later Hermes Sandals.
Yeah, for the middle chunk of the game, having haste and slow just trivializes so much stuff because you can get 20 turns for every action that the boss takes.
Yeah, I had mix, which means I had hasty aid, but
I just started laughing because it's like literally like everyone gets to do like three full actions, so you get 12 turns for the boss acts, and it feels like overkill.
Some cases it's more, but like it's man.
It stacks with because everyone or half my party had the Thief's Artful Dodger, which is if you master the job, they get the agility of a thief, so they get the base agility of a thief, which puts them about 40 agility. Good for using Chicken Knife, but also it makes it so their ATB bar, once the turn's finished, it goes to like 3/4 filled.
Yeah.
And so with haste, it just keeps. It's just like I get. They're in random battles, the enemies, they don't get to attack. That's just how it works out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's also the thing, like, none of us got to take advantage of it, but Spellblade is fucked because of how magic is fucked in this game. It's basically the highest level of Cure Fire, Thunder, and Blizzard all instantly kill anything weak to them. So, like, an undead would die instantly from a single target Kiraga, or something that's weak to fire would die instantly from a single target Firaga. The fun thing about Mystic Knight is that you get all of that benefit with none of the squishiness. So, and also bosses that are weak to those things, except for Kiraga. Yeah,
dual wield is easier to do than dual cast too, so you get 2 hits.
Yep. Also, this is really stupid, but the advanced jobs are kind of busted in ways that the originals aren't, and they had hindsight for this, so they just wanted to throw shit in. Gladiator uses swords, has a command that's just like execute or some shit. It does one of 4 random things. The odds are 4, 3, I think it might be 3. Point being, as you level the job up, the chance of one of these things happening goes up significantly. That thing deals elemental damage based on what, like, crystal is aligned with the character it's equipped on. Deals 9999 damage. Just outright.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah. You don't get it until you go into the sealed temple, so you've already, like, beaten the game and unlocked it and gone in and beat a super boss or 2 to get those jobs. But it's still just hilarious that they throw that in at all. Like, there's nothing left for you then. Just hit 9999 every turn, which I was doing twice with Holy, but
I think they just know what the people who play that much Final Fantasy V want. They just want big numbers.
I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
I would have added like they super don't, but I would have added something to break the damage cap in advance, because that would have been neat to see how high I could get my fucking shit.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, like, what other JRPGs would you play in this ridiculous format? Gay Anime Girl from Twitter asks, what do you think about the amount of information the game gives you about enemies? Personally, after playing a lot of SMT games, I feel like doing a challenge like this would be almost impossible without a guide saying what elements bosses are vulnerable to, and how their mechanics work, etc. And yeah, there's a reason that when I posted the video on the Fiesta, I was just like, hey, here's all these resources. If you're playing this for the first time like we are, please go use them.
Yeah. Like I said, I had at times 4 different guides open on my second monitor just to, like, stay on top of what was going on in the game. I had a boss guide and the handbook and Enkybot and a walkthrough, sometimes maps as well. It's not particularly with a view to streaming it. I would have spent so much time just sailing around completely lost, or rubbing my face on the wrong walls.
That's what I was
in
doing.
Dungeons. How did you finish in 9 hours less than me?
I pulled up a walkthrough after World 1, but when I was playing, I was like, I've played this game already. I don't need a walkthrough. And then I was just like flying around for a while, or sailing around for a while at one point in World 1. I'm like, all right, I need a walkthrough. I don't remember. None of this actually makes any sense. The scenario progression in Final Fantasy V is actually just kind of nonsense. You just do random things, and random things happen.
Well, I mean, it's kind of old school in that it's, you know, you go to a location, you do a dungeon, you go to a location, you do a dungeon, but it's also broken up by its inheritance from FF4, which is more narrative and naturalistic, and I don't think they ever reconciled that, and they certainly didn't get round to just adding an NPC at the end of, or a dialogue box at the end of each major set of cutscenes saying, you should go here next.
Well, that's going to say there's no strong hints to what you're supposed to do. Like, even say Final Fantasy 3, you go back in town and talk to people, and you're like, okay, I'm probably supposed to do this. But that's not really in 5 either. I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. What it's like in 5 is there is an important NPC you're supposed to talk to after the cutscene that'll tell you, instead of a townsperson, which trips me up, and I wasn't talking to anyone anyways.
Yeah.
So, like, at a certain point, say in World 2, after you finish a cutscene, you're supposed to go back and talk to the Wolf Dawn Warrior, and he'll tell you what you're supposed to do next, but it's not included in the cutscene, and if you don't talk to him, you can also stumble on it instead, and so yeah, it's just, I don't know why.
Even if I wasn't doing the Fiesta, I would still be using walkthroughs to look at this stuff, so it's just kind of an artifact of how old it is and how much... I've said this before, I think the biggest thing Final Fantasy VII did was, like, include tutorials and also clear we should be going here next at the end of, like, long cutscenes.
But also, something that never gets remarked on with FF7, I bang on about this whenever I get the opportunity, so excuse me. FF7's encounters are really visually legible. Like, you look at the encounter, and you can generally identify, okay, here's what the rough strategy I need to do is going to be for this. You don't really need a Libra in that game most of the time. There are a few enemies where deliberately it's designed to break that comfort. Like in Sephiroth's mansion, or the mansion where Sephiroth learns everything in the basement in the Calm flashback. There are enemies in there that just look weird and you have no idea what they're going to do. But that game's really good at communicating just from the enemy models. Oh, that's a robot, I'll use lightning on it, that sort of thing. But this game really needed Libra. And I think part of the reason that isn't in there, actually, is it'd be really difficult to get all that information into a quickly legible screen.
7 also wanted to be cinematic, I guess. It could have been like an unconscious thing. They didn't want you casting Libra, basically. But in Final Fantasy V, it's pretty easy to access Libra, too. Normally.
Is it?
Yeah.
What?
White magic.
What has Libra? Ah, right, okay.
It's just not in Four-Job.
Yeah, the thing is, a lot of these games, we're still just going for, like, if we can make tiny amounts of busy work add up to a longer game, or failures that make people learn add up to a longer game, we'll take that. And if and a lot of the process of playing this game is learning stuff like that. And then there's people like me who run away from everything and just fight when I need to grind, even when I'm playing normally.
At my previous point, how, like, I'm trying to remark how weird the game is. I feel like in Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI, the way the world map's structured and the way a lot of the dungeon, well, especially the world map's structured, it's usually kind of like a contained area, and you know exactly where to go next. And Final Fantasy V neglects that a lot of the time. It's not as just neatly constructed. It's just
it's quite spatially disjointed.
Yeah, you kind of like random things happen. I really mean you go random places, and it feels strange, because they were making more guided experiences, but Final Fantasy V doesn't seem to have, like... I just don't think it's as spatially evocative as the older NES RPGs when it comes to just putting things in places and coming back to them. Because you're not really doing that, you're just going to a part of a map that is not indicated, and then you do something there, and then you don't go back.
Yeah, especially with the fact that the world map changes twice.
Yeah.
The merged world I found really, really bewildering, because I was seeing bits of landmarks that I knew from 10 hours ago and 5 hours ago, and not really being able to relate them, because when I knew them previously, they were in different worlds.
I love the merged world, but it doesn't have a great... it's not as emotionally impactful as like it is aesthetically and visually, but Final Fantasy V can't and doesn't do anything with it. It's just, oh, now the worlds are together.
Yeah.
Because these are places you knew and now you don't. But all the townspeople are like, oh, there's new stuff here, it's interesting. No one's cognizant of the change as a change. There is just a thing that happened, and it's all video gamey.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, all the people in the world are dumb as shit, because I mean, Bart's and co are just teleported back to Tycoon Castle, and they're just like, oh, I guess we're back? What was all that fuss with the crystals about? Let's have a party.
Yeah.
And then they leave, and Guido has to tell them, oh yeah, the world's merged, and they're just like, what? Oh no, a splinter! My hand's exploding.
I mean, I would say basically Final Fantasy V is totally inconsistent, more than any other Final Fantasy as well. It's just all over the place.
See, I think it's got a very successful kind of through line of being very lighthearted, and then sometimes there are scenes that are dramatic.
But does it need the sudden and forceful melodrama with the lightheartedness? That's what's always kind of niggled me about the game, is that it's a game where someone will be introduced and then killed off without foreshadowing of either of those points, and then minutes later everyone's laughing and joking, and I just feel uncomfortable, basically.
I guess, but equally, I felt that the death of Galoof was quite well handled. I felt
I'm not actually talking about Galoof's death. I mean, the Dawn Warriors, basically. When
they kind of
Zig, I can't remember his name. He sacrificed himself in Exdeath's Tower, and it's supposed to be this sad thing, but it just feels like a body count. And this is a bad habit Square had on Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy II as well, where people just died because that's a serious story. But it feels really out of place in Final Fantasy V.
I guess, I suppose I didn't pay that very much mind because I went through the castle quite quickly. The Dawn Warriors do come and go a bit, but they don't really feel like... As the Dawn Warriors, they don't feel like part of the story at all. the characters that resonate are the parents. It's King Tycoon and Galoof, and like those are the characters that I think carry the emotional weight. And with those characters, I think it kind of worked. Like there's a real sense, okay, it's not a story that's going to linger on grief. It's not that kind of story. It's got too much of a pacing, and it's too cheery. But it recognizes that grief is a thing. If you compare Kryle's grieving to that scene that we raved about for 10 minutes last month from Rogue Galaxy with Jaster and Kasala.
Get over it, asshole. Just like, what the fuck?
But having that contrast certainly made me feel that FF5 was on the right track.
I mean, I could rephrase my criticism, say Final Fantasy V is clearly and obviously not carefully plotted.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Certainly at the level of the sequence of events, it just they went for whatever they could think of. There's something a bit endearing about that as well.
Yeah, the way I described it on Twitter was that it's Square Enix's own RPG Maker game, because it's indulgent, and it has the kind of the kind of spontaneity to it where you think of something, then you put it in. You just put it in there. That's what's going to happen next. I don't know what's going to happen next until I write what happens next. That's what it feels like when you're playing it. But I think for me, what works the best is there's just a constant need of futility, I guess. Because, like, until World 3, until the end, at everything the party tries to do or everything they catch wind of, they're always too late. And it's not just a couple times, it's actually just literally every time they're trying to do something, they're too late. Exdeath's there first. And they're woefully unprepared for Exdeath every single time, but they try anyways. And so it's just this textual sequence of growth and failure, and you're playing through this game where you're trying to develop these characters, but they're not quite there yet. And so it's like very precise or raw, pure JRPG where textually you're playing a game of near misses, and you're feeling that progression, and you're not there yet. Then at the end, in Act 3, when you get to finish it and you get there, your characters are also there. You're all there, and you win. And I like that.
Yeah, I think so. And like certainly the opening part of getting the jobs and going to each crystal has that feeling. And obviously in the second world, it's always Exdeath itself that's there.
I mean, but the thing in World 2 is that you're just not strong enough to beat Exdeath because your characters aren't strong enough yet.
Yeah.
Now this whatever thesis I'm saying, it stops working if you grind at any point. But if you don't grind, it starts to feel like that.
Or if you have the guide, or you've kind of got a broken strategy from early on.
You start using chemist right when you get it. Maybe it's not so true, but
like even then, actually, the party particularly in World 2, spends a lot of time in cutscenes getting beaten up.
Yeah,
there are some really long cutscenes that are just Exdeath beats you up, and I think that's effective, right? Because it something that I think can work really well in JRPGs is when the game goes, okay, all that progress you were doing and leveling and stuff was just turning the page. You're just doing what's necessary to keep the story rolling. It's not really, when the game denies that translates into the fiction, the actual mechanical capacity of the characters translates into the fiction. It just goes, no, here's a cutscene in which you're going to get beaten up, regardless of what god-slaying swords you've found. I think that can be quite effective, and I think it works very well in the scene with the World 2 crystals where Exdeath takes them over and is just zapping you repeatedly.
He does it again in World 3 too.
Yeah, it really, really goes on for a long time for a 16-bit cutscene. Just like endless zappage. Do we have more questions?
Nope, we are all out of questions.
Okay, one thing to say, another thing to say about the game is that I really appreciated the tightness of the dungeons. Like, the dungeon spaces, there's always enough for it to have a character, but most of them are only about 6 to 8 rooms. And coming off Rogue Galaxy particularly, but also, we've played a bunch of games where lots of dungeons were too large, but all the dungeons in this felt really, really well paced, especially for doing a challenge run with streaming and stuff. You go to the dungeon, you would move through some spaces, and fight a few random encounters and get to the boss and do the boss. And it's very it's a boss-focused game, and I'm not always a fan of those, but I think it worked this time because the pacing seemed built much better around the bosses. I don't know if
every boss is pretty different too. You're not going into the boss, so you're not going to do the same thing every time. Basically, it's not a really long fight. You're going to this boss. You're like, okay, this boss is doing this, and I need to do that, or I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
Well, usually that's the kind of boss that irritates me. I want bosses that are continuous with the random encounters, but I didn't mind it this time. Possibly just because I had the guide.
Yeah, the thing is, like, this game is built around, like, experimenting, and basically I viewed the entire thing as a playground for getting you to experiment with different ways to use your jobs in combination with each other and deal with different problems, and the plot just kind of happened as an excuse for all that. And I think it shows that, like, Enkybot is built to give you, like, hints on specific areas, like, that you're gonna go through, but, like, 70% of the headers are just bosses that you need to look at for specific hints for your layout, and I like that, but I'm also a fan of bosses in general as tests of the extremes of mechanical viability, and Becky isn't quite as fond of them as I am.
Yeah. Well, what I find is that often when games do that, and the best example I can go off the top of my head is Lost Odyssey, which literally every boss is like that, is it feels gimmicky. It feels like it's circumscribed from the rest of the game. There's this one thing that you've got to tease out from this fight, and if you don't tease it out, you can't do the fight. And Lost Odyssey is really frustrating with that, because every single boss is something new that you can't really prepare for in any way. You've just got to either look it up or discern it from what's on screen, which may be intelligible or may not be.
Persona 5 is like that, and people loved it, and it was just...
Persona
what they would
that.
do is add new mechanics just for the boss fight, and that was actually kind of grating to me. It's not what I wanted to do, but...
Yeah,
short tangent.
I mean, Persona 3, which I also kind of added, like, the first time you got Fuka, girl who is very good at scanning shadows, you had a boss where you had to scan shadows, like, every turn.
Yeah, that's just like, that's Persona ethos. Although Persona 3 also has a roulette boss, which I love. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
But it's so good.
Oh, man. Anyway, we covered the game, but I think something that it is worth having a chat about. So this is a challenge run, right? This is not just us picking up a game and playing through it in a quote-unquote casual way. What do you think? Do you think we gained anything? What do you think we gained from approaching FF5 this way?
I mean, a lot of things I got out of it were things I got from replaying in general, though. I mean, I was surprised to find out that I remembered most of these bosses because they're just, like, really well designed, really, like, they're just dramatic. Like, I mean, when I got to the Sandworm, I was like, oh, I remember this boss slowly reduces my HP, and I'm like, I hate it. But...
Yeah, the bosses are definitely memorable, and I think the way people talk about the Fiesta reflects that. Like, people, when the Fiesta comes up in conversation, people talk as if everybody knows these bosses, which is a bit bewildering for me at first, like, listening to people talk about it and be like, I don't understand what you're talking about because I don't know what Garrula is or Twintania or any of these things. But actually, once you get into it, I think, if nothing else, it gives a really good sense of community. And having like 4 or 5 people in our community also doing the Fiesta was great, and kind of having people to chat to about it as it was going on. But like, certainly the bosses really are the standout from the game.
It's obviously emergent and transformative and whatever the game studies words for this are, but I actually don't have the vocabulary to really communicate how differently it felt without like really thinking about it. And I tried, but it's just not what I'm good at articulating. I mean, it's harder. It feels more constricted. It's not a game about process and development and freedom anymore. It's about like doing your best. And for me, really, often a shitty situation.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I enjoyed it a lot more for not having to kind of choose among 20 jobs. Just like, here's 4, you got to work out what you're going to do with these. I would have got really bad choice paralysis just playing FF5.
I would have had the opposite problem where I just grinded out everything because that's the sort of person and player I am. Then I would have busted open the game had I not just been told, no, usually it's 4 jobs, you idiot. You can grind these out. The grinding feels good. Grind out this dual cast, you fuckhead.
Yeah, so, I mean, the reason I asked that is because, and we've been talking about this kind of in our mod channel, is whether it is a useful critical approach to do challenge runs, right? What does it enrich our approach to games generally, or is it a thing that it only works for some texts? Is it worth us doing more challenge run based episodes in the future? And the thing we talked about, and this is my thing because I've done speedrunning and I enjoy speedrunning, is maybe we should do a speedrun episode someday. Obviously, contingent on finding a game where the speedrun is about the right length, but there are games that might be in that bracket. And I started, so I've done Valkyria Chronicles speedrunning, which I picked that game because I wanted to study it, and partly because I thought in that particular case the speedrun strats, the things that worked for speedrunning, revealed some interesting things about how that game materializes its fiction, or in some ways fails to. But the question is it a generally useful thing? Is it something to look out for opportunities to do again, or is this going to be a one-off?
I mean, I'm going to sound like a Dark Souls think piece, but I felt like the added difficulty let me create a stronger relationship with the game's spaces and encounters that I wouldn't normally be forced to do. I wouldn't have to normally grind in the ruins in World 1. I wouldn't have to do that. I wouldn't really necessarily remember Arceus fight as well as I did, and have it kept locked in my brain for how to design a boss. I don't know how useful it is. I feel like it, to me, because I played the game, I feel like it's more useful if you've played the game before and you revisit it with something like this, at least so you're going to spend more time with it, really. It's just, I see it as just a fun way to study a text, I guess. I can only half remember a lot of the dungeons in Final Fantasy V when I tried to, but now I can remember the layouts that I thought were in Final Fantasy 3. Sometimes I thought they were in other games. I wasn't sure which ones were 5 or which ones weren't. But now I know the vertical designs of 5 really well, and those are the ones I wanted to emulate a lot because they're repetitive minimalist, but like Fork Tower. Each fork floor cuts its space differently, and it creates a different shape with the same base, and it's just it's fast, compact, and it looks really good. So yeah, I remember these things because I spent more time in the actual play part of it instead of trying to piece out the story that doesn't really matter or whatever.
Devin?
I think it really depends on the game, whether a challenge run or runs that are not casual would affect how we view them. I think playing a challenge run of Tales of Graces, if I wanted to do that game with the turn all my experience into money mode on, I don't think that would generate any more nuanced criticism. But something like this where the majority of the game itself is this job system on which the challenge run is founded, I feel like it gave me an appreciation for just how much of a snapshot this was of the design ethos that made this particular challenge doable, and this design being changed in further games in kind of the same mindset with Bravely, etc. Not really super viable because of how design has changed over the years. So, challenge specifically, unless it's something I don't know, there's not really a whole lot of narrative changing challenges that we can embark on with a lot of JRPGs. Maybe if we were a Western RPG podcast, we could go different routes on playing The Witcher. We could take different options in playing Mass Effect. We could play Renegade versus Paragon. But I don't think that's really... we tend to dig into the narrative side of things more than the mechanical a lot of the time.
There definitely are games, and I guess a lore chaos split in some of the SMT games, which is on my mind because I was reading a lengthy article about it this afternoon, rather than it being something I know anything about. Might be an example where kind of different mechanical choices actually integrate with the narrative to some effect. But I think it's fair enough. Certainly I don't think there were revelations from doing it this way. It was good fun. I can easily see myself doing the Fiesta again if I happen to have a relatively free June any year in the future.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing that you mainly do as an excuse to play Final Fantasy V with a group of friends, which is basically our our MO is having an excuse to play a video game with a group of friends and talk about it.
It's true.
I mean, I'll do. I kind of want to do Four-Job Fiesta next year too. Anyway, it was fun.
Yeah.
The question Becky had, that's just a really challenging question because looking at it critically is really niche and really meta. Basically, it's kind of like navel-gazingly. It's hard to apply it to anything except itself, but it's fun.
Yeah. Maybe I should actually be brave and write up my speedrunning Valkyria Chronicles experiences, because I do think I got something out of that. Maybe not as much as I thought I was going to.
I'd be interested.
Yeah.
I got to see the end of the game, which wasn't going to happen without learning the speedrun strats, because fuck Chapter 17.
I think part of like knowing a speedrun for a game is like the speedrun specifically, it inherently grants you the skills to clear a game when you might not be able to playing casually. Like, if someone was to learn the Final Fantasy XIII speedrun, they would be able to watch all the cutscenes and see all the cool stuff without having to, like, learn the actual intricacies, because they'd just be looking at, like, here's a second-by-second thing of what you do to win fights, and ingrain this into your stupid hands.
Also, speedruns erode the pedestal of naturalism we put up for these games, because I mean, you see how easy they are to break and how they're obviously virtual, and these representations don't hold up because they're not perfect. Yeah. And they can't be perfect.
That was what worked really well with Valkyria Chronicles, because Valkyria Chronicles, the speedrun, is basically your one-armored infantry go charging through open killing fields of machine gun fire, because there's only so much that the game can make possible in terms of incoming damage.
Yeah, the Super Scout strategies. Also, I'm still just permanently on tilt because of fucking how Valkyria Chronicles grades you. It's just like, how many turns did you take? No accounting for like casualties or anything. Just like, how long did you take? Oh, you took 2 turns. You get an A. Good. Have more money. Like, what the fuck is that? Anyway.
Yes. Right. I think that covers it. Does that cover it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I kind of expected this to be a short episode. I was looking for a 4th person, but we ended up not having one.
It's good because we're all shattered anyway, so we can sleep.
I mean, I'm fine. You two are the tired ones. I'm just kind of...
I am very tired.
Yeah.
Probably won't sleep. Just tired.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of DGC. Next month, we'll be closing out our 2nd year with Becky's favorite JRPG, Final Fantasy XII. It's another game based on the Evil East setting, and is getting a PS4 re-release based on its revised edition just in time for our episode. Becky, take it away.
Yes, so Zodiac Age comes out July 11th. I will be streaming like 90 hours a day of Zodiac Age when it comes out. FF12, so I kind of said, it's Yasumi Matsuno's contribution to the Final Fantasy canon. It's 1 part Cold War allegory, 1 part meditation on heroism within the structure of JRPG narratives and game narratives. And the new version has a job system. It'll be interesting to draw some comparisons. We're all playing different versions. Like, Leroy, you're playing the original international version, right?
I don't like the license grid. Yeah.
Yeah. And Devon's playing IZJS.
Yep, ICJS. International Zodiac Job System Edition.
Which was never released internationally, just to be clear.
Yep, but has an English patch. Woohoo, piracy.
Yeah, and I'm playing Zodiac Age, although I have also been playing the original version without streaming it, just to remind myself what it's like. I think it's a really cool game, and I will spend many hours next month talking about why. And
then probably 2 or 3 getting dunked on by both of us.
If you can get a word in edgeways.
I like it so far. I'm only 10 hours in. I have like no issues. I just want to see more.
Cool.
I want to actually finish the game, which is why we're playing it alongside Becky wanting to play it.
No, I didn't want to do an episode on it. I thought it might be a disaster.
Only because you're afraid, and you probably don't need to be because we're us and not most game critics.
True. I'm dreading, like, next week that there are going to be some extremely bad takes. And it's going to make me so mad.
Anyway, after that, we're celebrating our 2nd anniversary. Our 3rd year will be focusing on games that don't get talked about as much, and we'll be starting it with Legend of Dragoon, a PlayStation 1 game from Sony that came out in the gap between Final Fantasy 8 and 9. You can find our work on our website, jrpgsaredead.fyi, or our Twitter at jrpgsaredead, or individually at Invisiful for me, at Eat the Pen for Becky, and at Was Not Why Not for Leroy. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/deadgenre. Join us next time for episode 24 of Dead Genre Chronicles. Good night, everybody.